There is honestly nothing quite as intimidating as a blinking cursor on a blank screen.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially when that screen is an AI chatbot, you probably have this, I don't know, this vague lingering sense that you should be using it to completely revolutionize your workday, but instead you're just staring at it like wondering what on earth you're actually supposed to type.
Yeah, that blank text box is surprisingly paralyzing for a lot of people.
It really is. So, welcome to the Deep Dive. We have a massive stack of sources to go through today. We're looking at technical guides on prompt engineering, articles mapping out AI's daily impact from places like CTO Magazine, and this ridiculously comprehensive Zapier list of AI productivity tools.
That's a very long list.
Right. But the mission for you today, for the listener, is entirely focused on this one basic question. How can you start using AI today?
Not tomorrow, not, next year.
Exactly. Not when you have time to take a coding boot camp. Right now, with the tools that are already just sitting in front of you.
Yeah, but I mean, before we get into the actual mechanics of using it, we really need to address a persistent theme across all these sources.
Oh, the job loss thing.
Yes, every single time the topic of integrating AI into the workplace comes up, it is immediately shadowed by this fear of widespread job loss.
Right. People think they're going to be replaced by a robot next Tuesday.
Right, exactly. And the CTO Magazine analysis offers a very pragmatic look at this.
Yeah.
Their data suggests this fear is largely fueled by the sheer speed of the transition rather than a direct one-to-one replacement of human workers.
So it's more about the pace of change terrifying people.
Yeah, the workforce is undeniably changing, but the immediate reality is that AI is actually presenting unprecedented opportunities for individual productivity and innovation.
Right.
The framing we see in the research, it isn't about an algorithm coming for your desk. It is about you learning to leverage that algorithm so you can do your job more effectively.
Okay, let's unpack this because the most crucial takeaway for you, the listener, really needs to be stated right up front. You do not need to be technical to use AI.
At all.
Right. You do not need a background in computer science. Based on the material we're analyzing, the most accurate way to think about AI right now is that it is essentially like having a highly capable but incredibly literal intern.
I love that analogy. It's so accurate.
You don't need to know how to perform neurosurgery to build the intern's brain. You just need to know how to give that intern excellent, crystal clear instructions.
Exactly.
But that raises an immediate question. If we aren't coding, what exactly are we interacting with? Like when I pull up ChatGPT, what is actually happening behind that little chat box?
Well, you are interacting with what the industry calls a large language model or an LLM. And to manage that literal intern effectively, you really have to understand how it processes information.
Okay, so how does it process it?
Well, the MoveWorks research in our stack introduces this critical concept here called the stochastic parrot.
Wait, a stochastic parrot?
Yeah. A stochastic parrot is an AI system that uses complex statistical relationships to convincingly generate human-like text.
Oh, wow, okay.
It does this by basically predicting the next most likely word in a sequence based on massive data sets it's been trained on.
So it's essentially just guessing the next word.
Yes, exactly. But the defining characteristic of a stochastic parrot is that it lacks any true semantic understanding.
Meaning it doesn't know what it's saying.
Right. It doesn't actually comprehend the concepts it's writing about. It is a probabilistic text generator, just matching patterns at a massive scale.
I have to pause you there because that sounds like a major contradiction to me.
How so?
Well, if this tool is just a parrot spitting out a probabilistic word salad without any true comprehension of the real world, how could it possibly be trusted for real workplace productivity? I mean, if it doesn't know what a quarterly earnings report actually is, how is it useful to me when I'm trying to write one?
That's the thing, though. Its lack of true comprehension is the exact reason why your guidance as the user is the most important variable in the entire equation.
Okay, I'm listening.
Let's look at how the MoveWorks source breaks this down. If the AI sees the phrase, Paris is the capital of France, millions of times in its training data, it mathematically maps those words together.
Right, because they always appear near each other.
Exactly. It knows the statistical proximity of those tokens, so it can mimic the structure of an expert geographer perfectly, but it doesn't have a conceptual understanding of a city or a border or a government.
It has no idea what Paris actually is.
No, it doesn't know what France feels like or what a croissant is. However, when you guide it with your human judgment, its ability to recognize and replicate those linguistic patterns makes it a massive productivity booster.
Because it can assemble the puzzle pieces if I show it the picture on the box.
Yes, it can organize data, it can format messy notes, it can draft boilerplate text because those are all just structural patterns, but you have to be the pilot. You provide the meaning and the factual grounding. The AI simply provides the pattern matching muscle to execute it quickly.
So it's kind of like asking someone who has only ever read about food in textbooks to bake a cake.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Like, they know the word sugar usually appears statistically close to the word flour in the recipes they've scanned, but they have no idea what sweetness actually tastes like.
Right, they can assemble the ingredients based on patterns.
Yeah, but they need me to tell them exactly what the end result should look like.
Ah.
Which means the secret to unlocking this tool isn't learning Python. It's learning how to write instructions.
That is the perfect transition into what the tech world calls prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering.
Right. The research from the Distributed Object Computing Group and the Tech with Tim Guide focus heavily on this. Prompt engineering is essentially programming in natural language.
Using plain English to code.
Exactly. Since the model is a statistical engine, the words you use in your prompt act as mathematical weights that steer the output. The core principles they emphasize are clarity, conciseness, and the use of strong action verbs. Words like analyze, classify, or summarize.
Because those give the model a definitive structural goal.
Yes. But the most fascinating psychological rule for prompting these models is the principle of instructions over constraints.
Wait, instructions over constraints. I've actually run into this myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If I tell the model, don't write a long introduction, half the time it ends up giving me, like, 3 paragraphs of flowery preamble anyway.
Yes, that happens constantly.
What is happening under the hood there? Why does it seem to actively ignore the word don't?
It comes down to how attention mechanisms work in these neural networks.
Hmm.
When you write a prompt, the model weighs the importance of different words.
Yeah.
If you give it a negative constraint, like don't write a long introduction, the model's attention mechanism activates around the concepts of long and introduction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The word don't is statistically a very weak modifier compared to the heavy conceptual nouns and adjectives.
So by just mentioning long introduction, I'm basically baiting it.
Exactly. You are inadvertently telling the statistical engine to pull from its vast data clusters related to long introductions. It gets distracted by the very thing you told it to avoid.
That is so counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense when you remember it's just a math engine.
Right. It is vastly more effective to frame your prompts positively. Tell the model what it should do. Instead of saying what not to do, you say, start directly with the main argument in the first sentence.
That makes a lot of sense. You are shifting the statistical weight toward the action you actually want.
Yep.
And the sources point out that to consistently get a great result, you should build your prompts around 4 specific pillars: a role, an audience, a tone, and a format.
Let's actually apply those pillars to a practical example from the Tech with Tim transcript.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine you need to generate an out-of-office email. The typical beginner prompt is usually just write a short out-of-office email.
Which usually results in something completely unusable.
Oh, totally.
Like, it might invent dates out of thin air or add this bizarre corporate fluff that nobody actually uses in real life.
Because the prompt is too broad, the statistical engine just grabs the most generic, average out-of-office email from its training data.
Right.
Now, apply the 4 pillars. A properly engineered prompt looks like this. Act as a busy project manager. Write a short, out-of-office reply for my team and clients. Start with the exact dates I'm away, which are March 1st to March 25th. Give 1 sentence stating that Jane Doe is the contact for urgent issues. Be concise, professional, and direct. Format this as a 3-sentence email.
Wow. Okay, let's break down why that works based on the pillars. You gave it a role, a busy project manager.
Yeah.
That sets a specific statistical context for the vocabulary it should use.
Exactly.
And the audience is the team and clients, which shifts the model away from being overly formal or too casual.
Yes.
The tone is explicitly stated as concise, professional, and direct. And the format is a strict boundary, a 3-sentence email.
It's worth noting, though, that the researcher in that specific video example did actually use 1 negative constraint.
Oh, really? Breaking the rule.
Sort of, he added, do not use the phrase limited access.
Oh, okay.
This shows that while positive instructions are best for guiding the overall structure of the text, you can occasionally use negative constraints for hyper-specific phrasing rules.
Like banning a cliche.
Right. If there is a particular cliche you just hate, you can tell the model to ban those specific tokens from the output.
Okay, so if we know how to direct this statistical engine, right? If we know how to use roles and positive instructions to guide the parrot, where does it provide the most leverage in a normal workday?
That's the big question.
Because the sources map out 3 major use cases for beginners, and they are practically universal. Let's look at summarizing, brainstorming, and emails.
Summarizing is arguably the most immediate value add because we are all just drowning in information overload.
Constantly.
The Boodum research illustrates how AI handles this by compressing massive amounts of text into concise formats. But it's really important to understand the mechanism here.
Yeah.
The AI isn't reading the document like a human does, understanding the plot or the narrative arc. It is identifying the most statistically dense and significant nodes of information within a text block.
And stripping away the conversational filler around them.
Exactly.
The Zapier list highlights a tool called Fireflies for exactly this. It joins your digital meetings, transcribes the audio, and uses a bot to track the core topics discussed.
Which is huge for remote teams.
It is. But it's not just for formal meetings. Zapier also mentions Evernote's AI cleanup tool, which I find fascinating for just personal workflow.
Oh yeah, the note cleanup is great.
Imagine you are in a chaotic brainstorming session, right? Just frantically typing notes. You have typos everywhere, half-finished thoughts, zero structure.
That's all my notes, honestly.
Right. But you can feed that messy stream of consciousness text into the AI, and it uses pattern matching to logically reorder your fragmented thoughts into a beautifully formatted summary with clear bullet points and action items.
Which brings us perfectly to the second use case, brainstorming.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
We often restrict our view of AI to just being an execution tool, like something that cleans up what we've already done. But the research introduces a much more advanced application called the Tree of Thoughts framework.
I really want to dig into this because this sounds like a massive step up from just asking a chatbot a simple question. How does a tree of thoughts mathematically differ from normal linear prompting?
Okay, so in standard prompting, the AI generates a linear response. It predicts the first word, then the second, then the third, moving straight down a single path.
Or just a straight line.
Yeah. And if it makes a slight miscalculation early on, the entire rest of the response is thrown off. The tree of thoughts concept forces the AI to explore multiple reasoning paths concurrently.
Wait, concurrently?
Yes. It's very similar to how a computer plays chess. The AI will generate 3 or 4 different possible ways to answer your prompt. Those are the branches of the tree.
Ah, I see.
It then evaluates those branches against your original instructions, scores them, prunes the branches that's moving in the wrong direction, and expands on the branch that is most likely to succeed.
So it's essentially brainstorming with itself before it even shows you the answer.
Exactly.
The Zapier article gives a highly practical example of this with a tool called Hive. They feature a project from a prompt tool.
Oh, that tool is incredible.
It really is. You can give it a single high-level sentence about a marketing campaign you want to run. And instead of just giving you a paragraph about marketing, the AI spins up a comprehensive project plan, complete with timelines, distinct phases, and specific task lists.
It does the heavy lifting of staring at the blank page.
Yes,
Yeah.
generating that initial structure, which is so often the hardest part of any project.
And the final primary use case is email management. Tools like Shortwave or Microsoft Copilot Pro for Outlook, they are deeply integrating these language models directly into our inboxes.
Thank goodness.
Right. Shortwave, for instance, uses the summarization mechanism we discussed earlier to compress massive, messy email threads involving a dozen people into a single paragraph of key takeaways.
But what about nuance? Summarizing is one thing, but if I want an AI to help me write an email to, say, an upset client, I don't just need structural formatting. I need it to handle a really delicate situation.
And this is where features like the coaching by Copilot in Outlook become incredibly powerful.
Coaching.
Yeah, it isn't just generating boilerplate text, it is actively analyzing the sentiment of what you've drafted.
Really, it can read sentiment.
Well, statistically, yes. Because it has been trained on millions of human interactions, it can recognize statistical word clusters that correspond to different emotional tones.
Oh,
So it might analyze your draft and say, the sentence structure you've used here statistically correlates with aggressive or dismissive communication.
that is wild.
Right. And then it says, here is a suggestion to adjust the phrasing to increase the empathy of the message. It is identifying the structural patterns of human emotion and coaching you on how to apply them.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though,
Hmm.
because I've tried these tools, and honestly, half the time the intern hands me back a response filled with generic corporate jargon that completely misses the mark.
Oh, sure.
Like, you write what you think is a perfectly engineered prompt, and the AI just spits out something entirely irrelevant. What am I doing wrong in those moments?
That is the single most common point of friction for new users. And it leads directly to the most critical habit of AI use discussed in our sources, which is the feedback loop.
Okay.
The problem is that most people treat prompting like a search engine query. You type something into Google, and if the results are bad, you delete your search, type a completely new query, and try again.
Right. That's what I do.
You cannot do that with an LLM. You have to treat it as a dynamic, ongoing conversation. This is the concept of iterative refinement.
Meaning, if the output is wrong, do not hit the clear button and start over from scratch.
Exactly.
You tell the AI how to fix the specific thing it messed up.
Exactly. You are working within what is called a context window.
A context window.
Yeah, the context window is essentially the model's short-term working memory for your specific chat session. Everything you've said and everything it has generated in that specific thread remains in its active memory.
Oh, so it remembers the bad draft.
Yes. So if it gives you a bad draft, you simply reply, the tone here is way too formal, make it more casual. Or you completely miss the point about the Q3 budget, rewrite this draft, but dedicate a full paragraph to the budget numbers.
Ah.
It uses the previous bad draft as a baseline, applies your new constraint, and generates a refined version.
The sources also detail a technique that I found fascinating, which actually helps bypass the need for endless iterative corrections. It's called self-evaluation.
Yes, this is a great trick.
But if this thing is just a statistical pattern matcher, how do I get it to spot its own mistakes without me having to manually rewrite them for it?
It works entirely because it is a pattern matcher. Once the AI generates a draft, you follow up with a prompt like, rate your own output on a scale of 1 to 5 for clarity and suggest one specific structural improvement.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
You just ask it to grade itself.
Yes. When you do this, you are forcing the model to shift its statistical weights. It is no longer predicting text to answer your initial prompt. It is now predicting text that looks like a harsh critique of your initial prompt.
Oh, that is so clever.
It accesses data patterns related to editing and evaluation. It will often immediately spot its own flaws, saying something like, this draft is a 3 out of 5 because the second paragraph is repetitive.
And then what do I do?
You then simply reply, great analysis, apply that improvement, and rewrite the draft.
So what does this all mean? Because there is one more technique mentioned in the Advanced Beginner Tricks that fundamentally changes the dynamic. It's called interview-style prompting.
This one is a game changer.
A lot of the time, we get bad results simply because we don't actually know what context the AI needs to do the job. So instead of guessing, you explicitly shift the burden to the machine.
Right.
You tell the AI your ultimate goal. For example, I need you to write a highly technical blog post about our new software update. But then you add the instruction. Before you write anything, interview me. Ask me clarifying questions one by one until you have all the context you need to write a perfect post.
It is an incredibly effective strategy. You are acknowledging that the AI possesses the capacity to structure, format, and generate the final product, but you hold the domain knowledge and the intent.
Exactly.
By asking it to interview you, you are letting its statistical understanding of what makes a good blog post dictate the information gathering process. You are steering the stochastic parrot by letting it tell you what seeds it needs to eat.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. Let's bring this all together.
Let's get
The ultimate takeaway from this massive stack of technical guides and productivity analyses is that the best way to learn AI is simply to jump into the deep end and start using it.
100%.
Don't be paralyzed by the jargon or the fear of doing it wrong. Start with a foundational tool like ChatGPT. Practice writing clear prompts, remembering to establish your role, your audience, your tone, and your format.
And use positive instructions rather than negative constraints.
Yes, exactly. And most importantly, use it to solve actual daily frictions. Have it summarize your messy meeting notes, let it analyze the tone of your difficult emails, or use the tree of fonts to brainstorm a complex project plan.
And when it inevitably messes up, don't start over.
Iterate, refine, and command it to ask you the right questions.
It really is a dynamic skill. It only improves through interaction. The more you work within those context windows, the more you realize you aren't dealing with traditional software. You are managing a very eager, highly literal assistant.
But before we wrap up, there is one final concept from the research that I want to leave you, the listener, to mull over. It's a term popping up in the Agentic Design Patterns source. Agentic meaning AI systems that can execute multi-step goals autonomously.
Okay.
The term is vibe coding.
Ah, yes. This is a profound shift in how we think about work.
In the software development world, engineers are starting to use AI not just to autocomplete lines of code, but as a holistic creative partner. A developer simply describes the vibe or the high-level intent they want.
Right.
They might say, make this web page look modern, sleek, and load faster, and the AI agent autonomously handles all the intricate line-by-line execution to make that happen. The human focuses entirely on the high-level what, and the AI handles the how.
Which naturally extends far beyond just programming. As AI integrates into our daily workflows, acting as this creative partner for everyday tasks, we really have to ask what that means for the future of our own skill sets.
Exactly. If we are spending progressively less time executing the grunt work, if we are no longer physically typing out the emails, formatting the spreadsheets, or writing the boilerplate text, and we spend all our time simply directing the AI, how does that change us?
That's the big question.
Will our own human creativity evolve to new, unprecedented heights because we are finally freed from the mundane friction of execution? Or, conversely, will we just become managers of machines, slowly losing our own fundamental skills in the process?
It's a slightly scary thought.
It is. As we shift into this new era, are we becoming the master chefs, inventing entirely new culinary categories because we don't have to chop the onions anymore? Or are we just shouting blind orders at an intern who has never tasted the food? It is definitely something to seriously think about the next time you're staring down that blinking cursor, deciding how to write your first prompt.